First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I'll move it.
Second.
Second by Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Items 2 through 6 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 2 is approval of the minutes of the June 20th meeting. Item 3 is approval of the claims. Item 4 from Board Administration includes A, approval of a resolution for a tax suspension for initials HD, and B, approval of lifting of tax suspension for initials CR. Item 5 from Human Resources includes A, approval of the memorandum of personnel transactions, B, authorization to initiate the hiring process, C, approval to carry over 80 hours vacation for initials KS to be used within the next year. Item 6 from the Deputy Commissioner of Elections includes A, receive the appointment of Tina Kilpatrick as Woodbury Township Clerk to fill the vacancy left when Brittany Benscotter resigned. B, receive the appointment of Ross Baldwin to the City Council seat in Anthon to fill the vacancy left from Mona Kirschgatter's resignation. And C, receive the appointment of Linnea Fletcher as WIT District Number 4 Board Member to replace Bill Lyle. I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Taylor.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just want to confirm that the AP claims included the email from today of additional claims.
Yes.
Okay,
We
thank you.
received 2 additional information on 2 additional claims that will not be processed next week due to there being no board meeting next week due to the holiday. So the board's received those. No questions on those. All right. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item 7 from the Deputy County Recorder, Diane Peterson, is to approve closing Siouxland's refund request for $53.68 from General Basic for the county portion of transfer tax paid on deed 2022-11044.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. They've already gotten back their state refund, and now they're requesting the county. They overpaid it. They recorded the deed in the wrong county. It should have been recorded in Buena Vista. Didn't realize until after it was recorded, so once it's collected, it can't be taken back unless you authorize it.
I'd move it. Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by Bittinger. Hearing no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're just a couple minutes ahead of our set time. Let's do item 15, any reports on committee meetings? Nobody?
I had nothing, no, not from last week, no.
We're doing reports on committee meetings since we're ahead of a set time. Mr. Radig, if you had anything.
Yeah, sorry, my haircut took a little longer than expected. They didn't finish trimming, so, and I didn't look in the mirror with glasses to know how I looked, so, thank you. Simcoe, we had Simcoe meeting, discussed certs and the move that's coming up. Seems like the way things are moving, all our next meetings are gonna end up in the new building, so it's kind of exciting.
Nice. All right, so we got the county report on Simcoe, the county haircut report. We are now at our set time of 4:35. This is item number 8 from Board Administration. Item A is a public hearing and sale of property parcel, also known as 3223 11th Street. Before we receive bids, the public hearing is now open for anyone wishing to speak for or against the sale.
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
I'll second the motion by Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. We're now open to receive bids. If you'd approach the microphone, give your name and address and your opening bid.
Shauna Hassler, and I live at 1123 Cornelia Street, which borders that land. And this one is the regular one. They have that at 408.
408. Is there anyone else?
Nick Noyes, 201 West Amherst Street, Marcus, Iowa. I'm property adjacent. 450.
$450.
$455.
What was that?
455.
500.
Um, 550.
You could both stay there if you don't want to walk back and forth. Looks like you're the only two.
The one that's right behind your house.
That one's the half.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you look, this is all mine. All this,
Yeah.
it goes, it's,
Right here.
it borders my house. That's why I want both of them.
Okay. What was the last bid?
455.
600.
Aren't we, we're doing this one right here, right?
Yeah. That's, you can have the one behind you. And I won't bid on the other one.
650.
700.
750.
800.
900.
950.
955.
1000.
1100. How far are you gonna go?
12.
1250.
1300.
1350.
1400.
1400. And 50.
1500.
1750.
1800.
1,800, going once, going twice. Move the property be sold for 1,800 to Mr. Nick Noyes,
Second.
second by Taylor. Any discussion? All's in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Heather will take care of you. Thank you. Item 8B is our 4:37 PM set time. This is a public hearing and sale of property parcel, also known as 3223.5 11th Street. Once again, before we receive bids, the public hearing is open for anyone wishing to speak for or against the sale of the property.
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
I'll second the motion by Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. We're open to receive bids.
Shauna Hassler and 423.
423. Is there any other bidders?
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the properties be sold to Ms. Hassler for $423.
I'll second the motion by Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Heather will take care of you back there. Item 9 is for action to discuss and receive the Woodbury County Certified Annual Financial Report FY22 from Williams and Company.
Good afternoon. Chad with Williams and Company. We did the audit for the fiscal year 22. we'll just kind of go through the annual report here. That the very first page to highlight is page 1. This is the transmittal letter. It's basically where management can kind of discuss different things that is happening within Woodbury County, the economy, and just different items. There, just a few pages long there, so there's some good information there. Page 7, I want to highlight is the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. So this is a GFOA certificate. It was awarded for FY21, and then we also submitted it for FY22. That probably in 8-9 months we'll get comments from GFOA. I expect us to receive this certificate for the FY22 report. FY21 just had a couple minor comments, and we made those changes, so there's nothing too major there. Starting on page 12 is our auditor's opinion. First paragraph, we say that we have audited the company financial statements of the governmental activities, the discretely presented component unit, which is Siouxland District Health, each major fund, and then the aggregate remaining fund information for the county. Second paragraph says that we are, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. So that's the clean audit opinion that you want to receive. So everything looked good there. Page 15 is management's discussion and analysis. There's a lot of good comparative information from 22 to 21 and the reasons why things increased or decreased. Page 23 is the start of the statement of net position. So this is a very high level, 10,000 foot level. No management decisions can be made at this level, but it has all the assets and all the debt on an accrual basis. One thing to note is that there was a net pension asset because of the IPERS investments for that year, that the investments did so well that IPERS was actually overfunded. Because actually I know for a fact that it went back down, so now it's going to be back a liability. It's nothing that you guys will ever pay. It's just that the standards say that you have to put your share of either the IPERS asset or liability on the books, but basically it'll get paid through the contributions of future years. So nothing there. It's just that this was the first time that we saw it be overfunded this year. Page 24 and 25 is the statement of activities. So this is, again, on an accrual basis, income statement. Again, no management decisions can be made from that. Page 26 is the governmental funds balance sheet. So all the larger funds are shown here, and then the smaller funds are shown in the back. And then on page 29 and 30 is the income statement for these larger funds. One thing that we always point out is for the general fund, how many days in unassigned fund balance there are, and there's 84 days compared to 76 days. And so what that means is that after year end, the general fund could have operated without any additional revenue for 84 days. And typically we like to see 90 to 120, so you guys are right there. So there's no issues there. Page 32, that's just the balance sheet for the internal service fund, which would be the insurance funds. Then you have the income statement and then cash flow. 35 and 36 is the combined report for the custodial funds, and they're all shown individually in the back. Page 37 is the start of the notes. A lot of good information there, going into more detail of the face of the financial statements. one thing I want to point out on page 46 and 47, and then also, I think it's on page 51, there was a new lease standard that was implemented in FY '22. It was a very large standard. It took a lot of time, and just based on what you guys had going on, basically this standard says that if you are leasing the use of something, so say a copier, that you're leasing the copier, that now that has to be put on the books because you have the right to use that asset. So you put the asset on the books and then the liability because you owe the company money. Same thing for if you're leasing land, let's say, now that lease is put on the books, that you already have the land as a fixed asset, but you put the receivable because somebody owes you money for the life of that contract. And then there's a offsetting liability, and that's how the revenue gets recognized. That the standard was so large that we actually even purchased software ourselves to keep track of it. And so we worked through that, which was 22, but now in 23, there's another new standard. It's very similar to this, but it's dealing with software. And if you have a 3-year agreement with software, now that agreement basically gets put on the books. So we have 1 more year of basically working through this, but it's just them creating these new standards that we have to work through.
Does that make it easier or harder that we work with this, WCICC on all that?
I'm hoping easier. Our initial plan was to early implement the standard, but once we got working with leases, we decided just to kind of punt on it because it wasn't required for the 22. So I'm hoping that all that, because I knew that you guys are kind of unique and have that compared to our other clients. So it's something that we got to look into and see how that agreement is worded, because I think the leases that were identified to us, we were able to throw out like about half of them because they didn't meet the actual definition, what the standard said. So it's a lot of reading of fine print to know if they meet the standard or not. So I know that's one thing that we will be looking closer into is, how that agreement, and then just what other softwares that you all have, because I know like at the state auditor's class that they put on, they were mentioning the assessor, would have some software too that possibly could meet the standards. Just that every client it's unique to every client because of agreements that each one of you enter into. So again, it's just something that we'll have to work through. So I don't think there's anything else to note regarding the notes. Kind of skipped a few pages here. Going to page 70, this is the balance sheet for all the smaller funds. So they were grouped together in one column up front, and now they're all broken out individually. And then page 75 is the income statement for those as well. And then page 80 is the individual fund financial statements for all the trust and agency funds. They're called custodial funds now. There's quite a few of them, but then on page 86 is the income statement for those funds. And then page 92, that since Siouxland District Health doesn't issue separately issued financial statements, then we have to show those statements separate here in the back. So that's the balance sheet and income statement. Gonna skip page 96 is the start of the statistical section. So this is part of the ACFR, the GFOA program. There's roughly about 20 different stat tables back here, showing a lot of good information, 10 years worth of information to be able to follow some trends. Going to skip to page 122, which is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and page 124 shows the total of 3.4 million. So that would be between the county and Siouxland District Health together. You know, with ARPA coming down the line, there'll be more dollars on this schedule, probably more that we'll have to test as well, just because of the volume of the federal awards. Page 126 is just our report on internal control, that we don't actually test internal control, but we just have to gain an understanding of it. And then page 128, 29, and 30, it's kind of the same thing, but dealing with federal grants. Page 131, right in the middle, where it says underneath the assistance listing. So those are the three different federal awards that we had to test, that there's a formula that shows how much that we have to test. At a bare minimum, we have to test at least 40% of your federal awards. So we tested at least 40% of that 3.4 million, and that was between these three different grants. For findings, for financial statement findings, we just have the journal entry finding, have that every year. 95% of our clients have that. There's really no getting away from that. If you have one journal entry, then we have to have the findings. So there's, again, nothing too concerning there, that pretty much all of our clients have that finding.
So, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Overall, you would say it's a clean bill of health? I mean, if you wanted to summarize the whole thing for the good of the public and the board.
Yes, I would.
Okay. Can we look at page 22 for just a moment?
Page 22.
Yeah, so I just had a question of clarification, then I wanted
Yep.
to ask you a little bit about debt and bonding. So, under economic factors in next year's budgets and rates, it says total assessed valuation, including TIF values for the county, increased from 7.9, I'm using rough numbers, 7.9 billion in 2020 to 2021, to 7.6 billion roughly. For an annual decrease of 4.6%.
Would be a typo then.
That's okay. So is that, it's a decrease, not an increase? And then my secondary question would be for Dennis, is that accurate that we went down by that much money, or is that the effect of TIF?
That's
Which is-
effective TIF, where the city may withhold TIF because
Okay.
they have additional projects than ourselves. We don't have really any our way except for the 10-year program at the moment.
Okay, so
For
when we're
secondary
looking at
roads.
assessed valuation with
Yes.
this,
Yes.
anytime we're taking, that TIF has its effect, it's decreasing the amount of money that we have for.
Sometimes it will and sometimes it'll increase.
Okay,
Depends on their needs for their principal, interest, other payments.
yep,
Yeah, if they release a lot of TIF funds, then it is very beneficial, but at the same time, I think wasn't a lot of that decrease due to a lot of properties being overassessed in the commercial side of things?
Part of it.
And those were challenged and those came down.
Okay.
And like large amounts, like large retailers, I think, that were overassessed by $1 million.
okay.
It happened multiple times.
The second question I had regarding the outstanding debt Woodbury County has, you said the county had total bonded debt outstanding of $71,168,573. Does that include the jail project?
Yes.
I'm assuming?
Yep. And so it's that when that first got created, we had to really look at that because it is its own separate entity, but it's so commingled with the county that it met the definition of being a blended component unit. So like Siouxland District Health is a discretely presented component unit, so it's in its own column. On page 27, you'll see that it's its own fund being blended within the county's funds. And the reason why that is because that to make the debt payments, the jail is dependent on the county. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any resources to be making those payments. So that's why it met the definition.
So that's the bulk of it, is that right? Is going to be
Yes.
the jail project. So I just wanted to point out, and you mentioned it in this, We have a bonding capacity for $104 million, just 5%.
5% of the, of the assessed value.
And even with the jail project, we're at under 1%.
Yes.
0.87%. So I think that speaks volumes. I mean, outside of bonding for the jail, which includes this, we're only at 17.6% of our bonding
Well,
capacity.
gravel road project would be another,
8 million.
But I think
But
that
with
was.
TIF, is that counting against our?
Yes.
bonding? Okay.
Yep.
So those two components.
that makes up something like 90% of all of our debt.
Correct.
The rest of it is CIP loans.
So I just wanted to point out, I think that bodes well for kind of the two things, kind of bricks and mortar and our roads that we bonded for.
Yeah, it was very unique seeing those with the jail, the large dollar, because obviously never have taken out that amount of debt before. But yep, that's where the majority of that is coming from.
Thank you.
Yep.
And both of those are typically, when you look at the road project, it's abated by the TIF revenue, and the jail will hopefully be abated by federal revenue. So, I mean, that was a referendum that was passed. We can levy more to the debt levy to pay it, but, you know, I think we're doing right by taxpayers to see how creative we can be and find outside ways to fund these very large projects.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll move the approval, or actually, yeah, it's
receive.
action.
To receive.
I'll second the motion by Raddick. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 10 from Navigator CO2, Tracy Gibler, is an update for information.
Hello, thank you so much. My name's Tracy Gibler. I'm with Navigator CO2, and I'm relatively new to the team, so I wanted to come and introduce myself and to give you an update. First, some high-level stats, and then I want to talk to you about safety today. So the first thing is there's approximately 1,300 miles of new pipe that we would be putting into the ground in phase one that will gather CO2 from 21 ethanol and fertilizer plants across 5 states, those being Minnesota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, and then Illinois, where it will ultimately be sequestered. Our project was commercially anchored by Valero Renewables, meaning the initial design was around their 8 plants. And we have since added Poet, Big River, Siouxland Ethanol, and OCI Fertilizer to the expanded footprint. Now, of our 810 miles here in the state of Iowa, 26 miles are here in Woodbury County. We have currently spent $14.6 million statewide on right-of-way easements here in the state of Iowa. So I just want to give you those top lines before we move on to safety, where I'll spend the bulk of my time. I want to be conscious of your time today. Our carbon management platform is designed expressly for CO2, and that is the only product the system will be permitted for and transporting. The design, construction, operation, and safety of the system is overseen by the Office of Pipeline Safety within the U.S. Department of Transportation. Throughout the entirety of the project, we will meet or exceed standards, regulatory standards. So the CO2 in this line will be in a liquid state, and it must maintain at least a 1,200 PSI, which is pounds per square inch, to remain a liquid. The system will have a range of operating pressure, but will be designed to exceed the safety standards and maintain at least 1,300 PSI. Placement and size of the pipe are also very common questions. We intend to be at least 5 feet deep and underneath any existing lines and utilities. The size of the pipe will range from 6 to 20 inches throughout the entirety of the project, with the larger pipe being closer to the gathering locations near the storage site and the trunk line. Upon leaving the ethanol and fertilizer locations, the product will normalize to ground temperature, so you won't see thaw lines in the fields like you might see for other products. For control, isolation, and safety purposes, we will have a number of valves spaced strategically along the line. And if you are interested on where the tentative sites for those would be in Woodbury County, I'm happy to get those to you, but I do stress they're tentative depending on what our permit may or may not be granted. As we mentioned, pressure is important to the system, and to maintain that pressure, we will likely have 2 of the 3 booster stations placed in Iowa. Okay? So more in depth on safety. Safety is not a function of one specific variable. To develop and operate a safe piece of infrastructure means accounting for a variety of items and then determining which of those variables we can, we can manipulate in order to make the system safer. One of those is the plume dispersion modeling we are conducting with 2 independent firms, which can help forecast impacted areas. In many facets, we are already far exceeding federal standards, but these models help us determine when and where we may enhance the design components to further improve safety. For example, we could put the pipe deeper. We already exceed the 36-inch general minimum depth, and we're committed to at least 5-foot minimum depth. Thicker wall pipe, more and closer valve spacings, and installing warning tape 2 feet above the pipe for visual indicator of a hazard below for anyone who might be digging on their property or for other utilities doing projects. Post-construction, there are a number of assessments to validate the integrity of the system prior to operation, including hydrostatic testing, where we put water in the pipe to make sure that it can withstand the necessary pressure, far above our operating pressure, and hold that pressure for 8 hours. Okay? We also have a robust ongoing trainings and communications with local responders to ensure they are well-versed on the system before we go into service. And a little side note on that, we are currently involved in arranging our emergency response plans. And doing that, we will speak directly to your emergency response department and coordinator here in the county to make sure that we're getting the appropriate feedback on what specifically is needed here in Woodbury County to make sure that the plan is effective and something that we're submitting could be put into action. So we can give you more details on that as that's solidified. As we move construction into operations, we have a variety of components constantly monitoring the line. We're installing fiber along the trench line, which can sense the slightest vibration and listen for leaks or nearby excavations that could impact the line and provide precise XY coordinates for our team to respond. We will also incorporate mass balancing to ensure what comes in matches what goes out. Our system accounts for redundancy in communications and power to ensure we can always control the valves and system operations. Cathodic protection to prevent corrosion, and CO2 monitor devices above ground. In addition to consistent electronic oversight, there will be a control room with pipeline monitors where a real live human being will be tracking all aspects of operations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We'll have routine testing, calibration, and inspections throughout the life of the system, as well as our own pipeline operators spread out across the project footprint, monitoring and working to keep the line safe on a daily basis. The last thing I'll touch on today, provided I'm okay on time, is we want to have these emergency response plans designed specifically for each county. So that's why we're going to meet with your individual emergency response coordinators. Unlike natural gas, CO2 is non-flammable, but it is also colorless and odorless. Additionally, it is heavier than air and will settle towards the ground as it immediately begins dissipating back into the atmosphere. It is mildly toxic based on the ratio of concentration and exposure of time, and that is why we ensure safety through plume modeling. Much like other hazardous liquids that are transported each and every day, there are ways to do this safely. And that is by doing community education and education with the emergency response coordinators. That is the summation of my presentation today. I have many other things I could talk to you about and would welcome an invitation back, but I want to be respectful of your time today. So please feel free to reach out. I can reach out to each of you as well. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Did we have any questions?
As I throw things around. Yes, sir.
I had a quick question, and I was trying to find it here, but, and I know that things are different, and there's different companies doing these projects, and then they're different states, but I understand that, it already been brought to my attention, from someone, a farmer that I follow in South Dakota, that in some of these contracts involving the pipeline, that after so many years, the farmer essentially relinquishes rights to where that easement is, that the companies could allow or would be able to control if that farmer could even farm that, or could even drive across it, could go back and forth across it, even though the farmer still owns the land and is still paying taxes on it, that the company basically controls so much of that easement area that the farmer could even access potentially their own property. Is that something written into your guys' contracts?
Not to my understanding, but I can look into that for you if there is something
I'd
specifically
appreciate
like
that,
that.
yeah. I was trying to find this report, there was a big thread on Twitter about it, a bunch of people were talking about it, and they didn't, I cannot recall what company they said, but I would be interested to know that, so.
I'll confirm for you that. I do know that we have a larger temporary easement for construction purposes.
Sure,
But
sure.
it's my understanding that it's just a 50-foot easement for the pipe.
Sure, okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you very much. I think we're interested in safety, especially at the federal
course.
level as PHMSA's being relooked at. And so I just want to make sure I'm understanding. It said it's non-flammable, but you admit it's toxic. And when you say a plume dispersion model, can you elaborate? You're talking about a plume that would be the result of a rupture.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That would be a worst-case scenario, sir.
Okay, so you have this potential rupture of the pipeline, you have a plume, and you're modeling how that would affect landowners potentially here in Woodbury County and how it would, its toxicity in terms of their livestock, families, and so on.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And so using different things, and that's why this is going to be on a county-by-county basis, is we've got to take into account topography, weather conditions, et cetera, things like that. And the kind of resources that you all have available to you through your emergency coordinator. Some counties don't have certain resources, and we want to know that ahead of time so that we can help prepare them. We do not anticipate any kind of rupture, but we want to prepare for the worst-case scenario so everyone's safe.
So when you do this plume dispersion model, and you say, okay, this rupture happens, this plume is here, this is how the winds could shift and change, this is how far setbacks need to be, is that kind of where we're going with this?
That's my understanding. I don't have information personally on the plume modeling, but I can get you more if you would like that.
Okay, no, I
Supervisor
appreciate
Taylor.
it very much. And then the last question is, let's just say I'm one of these landowners that does not particularly want a pipeline, and I'm fearful for the safety of my family. You said that there's 1,300 miles, and do you know the percentage of voluntary easements at this point versus those that you anticipate will have to be forced through eminent domain?
I do
by a
not have
three-member
that at
board?
this time, no. But we want to work collaboratively with you folks and with landowners. So, if they have specific buildings they need us to stay away from, including their homes, tile drainage issues, please tell us that. We are able to manipulate the lines such that we can accommodate things. But in some situations, landowners aren't even talking to us, and so we don't even know.
Right. Yeah, and that's the rub, right?
Right.
Those who don't want it on their land at all. So that's
Right.
That's who we hear from
I
on a regular
can
basis and
understand.
what we're trying to navigate. And I understand you have a job to do as well. But appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
I
Okay.
think that, that modeling would be a good resource to determine a setback. I think that, a lot of companies are looking at, well, this is the federal regulation. Well, the federal regulation was kind of based off of liquid pipelines for things that are liquid at a normal pressure level. When you look at, 1,200 PSIs, that's a high amount of pressure. I've popped a tire, at 50 PSIs before, and that's pretty scary, It's nothing like, when you convert it to, pascals as a unit of force, pressure, you're talking 8 to 9 million pascals on this pipeline. That's a lot of pressure. So, I think from a science background, if you look at how CO2 as a liquid is gonna go to a gas, how much more volume does that take? How much capacity is coming out because of how much gas is between this valve and that valve and coming out wherever the rupture is. Obviously, if you're a homeowner, that would be a major concern. If you have livestock, that would be a major concern. And if you don't address those concerns, I don't know how, if I were on a utilities board, I could move forward and grant permission, but that's not my position. I'm here, and I don't really have a say. But, if I were a company, I would be very concerned if there's people out there voicing these concerns and they're not addressed. It's gonna end up kind of like the submarine here that was just told, hey, we've got these concerns. They still did the trip. And, I guess we all know how that ended. So, safety is very important, especially when it comes to somebody else's life, so.
I 100% agree with you. I'm from Iowa as well. I'm from Ottumwa. It goes through my county as well. So I have a vested interest in the safety of people I love too. So I 100% get what you're saying, and I appreciate those concerns, and I want them. When you're hearing from landowners, I've given a couple of you my card, and I will at the conclusion of the meeting to the rest of you. Feel free to give them my email and to tell me, what the issues are. I want to know.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
In regards to the ongoing maintenance of these pipelines, and you said that the depth was at 5 feet, which is pretty deep. Over time, these pipelines of any kind have the tendency to move and rise towards the surface. And so is that written in the contract as to who is going to be responsible? Is the landowner going to, let's say if that pipe rises to now it's only 3 feet below the surface, whether it's from frost heave, whether it's from erosion on top, who's going to be responsible for fixing that? Because there are some instances currently where landowners have had pipelines go through their farm 50 or 60 years ago that are now not at the proper depth. And these companies that are making millions, if not billions a year, are saying that the farmers are responsible for fixing that. So do you know off the top of your head, is that something you could find out?
It would be the company. We would be
You guys would.
in concern for the maintenance of the pipe. Now, what I will certainly confirm that for you with one of our engineers. I'm not a construction
Sure.
person, but I
Sure.
can get that hard confirmation for you.
Sure.
But
Okay.
we want to put as little burden upon a landowner as possible.
Okay.
But I think piggybacking off of that, it's not the maintenance of the pipe per se, it's the maintenance of the land and the
Yeah.
safety
Right.
concerns, right? So
Yeah.
if it's written into the contract, and that to me, we're going to take care of land concerns so that it's at a safety depth
Yeah.
versus the maintenance of the pipe. So just to put a little finer point on it, I think.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you.
Would you all like to be on my responses to these questions, I presume? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 11 from juvenile detention now is for action. This is approval to enter contract with Sioux City Community Schools to provide daily meals to juvenile detention.
Ryan Weber, juvenile detention. Every year in the budget, I bring up meal costs. They rise. We've been pigeonholed into one company for time due to certain regulations. I have a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen with the LAC closing because that's where our food is made, whether it's going to be in the new jail, whether it's, how much more it costs to transport it here. Recently, we got a contract renewal from the current company. And just to let you know, 2 years ago it was $6.60 a meal. Last year it was $8.95, and now they're requesting $9.73 per meal. Sometimes at breakfast is a granola bar and a milk for $9. So we feel obligated to go out of our way and try to find something that works legally for what we do, and it's a lot cheaper. We came up with a contract with Sioux City Community School District. Now that they do all these programs during the summer, on weekends, they have the ability to do 24/7, 365 meals. They were happy to work with us. As you can see, per the sheet, each meal is considerably cheaper, starting with breakfast, which is the cheapest meal, all the way up to supper. They can provide it on the weekends, holidays, no matter what. They can provide it at all times. So I'm requesting that we switch. The contract ends with our current person on July 1st, and we'd like to start here on Saturday with Sioux City Community Schools and contract with them and see how that goes. But you can see it's a substantial cost. Even we would lose the reimbursement that we got before because now the school district would get it on their end. But even with that reimbursement, we're still saving 50-60%. So, and we have last year, I went over on my food budget because that's where we like to take from when we're budgeting here. But the amount of kids I've had has been just crazy. So we're pumping kids in and out of there way more than we ever have. So that $9 and something a meal, the meals next year would be, a huge chunk of my budget. So this should save a ton.
I'll move it.
Second the motion by Radig, certainly understandable to me. Any other questions?
I think it's an awesome thing because we always are tasked with how are we doing intergovernmental cooperation, and this is a great one. So
Yeah,
thanks for
and
looking.
before, it was out of the jail and it was a cooperative thing, but for Sioux City School to make our meal, it doesn't cost them that much because they're making thousands of them. And to meet, the nutrition guidelines for a smaller company to make it alongside the food they're making for the jail, I can understand where the costs for them come. And if it was my money, I might be a little sympathetic towards it, but it's not, it's your money, so.
How many do you have on average?
Kids?
Generally, yeah.
Yeah, we've been full 17 to 21 for a whole year now. Nebraska's got a lot of home issues out there, and half of our beds are going to them, half of our beds are going to Des Moines. I could be full every single day if we wanted to.
And
Staff
how many residents would that be?
21.
21,
Yeah.
okay. So if they're making 15,000, 21 is probably not a big lift, more.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you. You have a motion? And second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
I want
Thanks
to give
again.
some credit to Marie Thomas, my assistant. She worked really hard on this, so.
Very good. Item 12 from Planning and Zoning for action includes A, approval to receive the final staff report and the Zoning Commission's recommendation from their May 22nd meeting to approve the final plat of Homestead 1867 addition, second filing a minor subdivision in Woodbury County.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Dan Priestley. The Zoning Commission unanimously sends their recommendation for this two-lot subdivision of 56 acres, with one lot being about 31 acres, the other lot being about 24. It's basically an agricultural subdivision. The Zoning Commission did recommend that they prepare a driveway share easement agreement, which has been completed. They've met that standard, so everything appears in order with this one.
I'll move it.
Second.
Second by Bittinger. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item B is approval to accept and approve the Homestead 1867 edition. I'll move it.
Second.
Second by Raddick. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 13 from Building Services for action is approval of the fiber optic connectivity FiberCom proposal, Highway 75 city fiber infrastructure and 28th Street connection.
Kenny Schmitz, Building Services Director. This would take our fiber from the 28th Street project connection boxes underneath Highway 75 to the city, the city fiber connection boxes. Initially, this extension was not part of the 28th Street project. The 28th Street project only took the fiber to one side of the street and not to the other side of the street. So this makes that interconnection between the city and the county. The proposal, we asked for FiberCom. Initially, the upper portion of that, where it indicates Woodbury County will provide the following, which is 24 fiber cable, 3 splice cases, 2 24 fiber splice trays, and ground rods. And it has an exceed number there above it at $2,500. The county was not able to provide any of those items except the fiber cable. And as you see in the lower portion of that proposal, we requested FiberCom to give us pricing on the units that the county couldn't provide. That's what that lower portion is. And so the combined total would be not to exceed $3,880 to make that connection.
I thought that was a good price for us, and looking in the details in there, I thought, man, that's an expensive spice tray, but then it was a splice tray, so I guess it made a lot more sense then, so I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Raddick. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 14 from Board Administration, Dennis Butler for action includes A, approval of appropriation resolution for FY24.
Okay, this is our annual appropriation to each individual department division within the county here. Totals approximately in the low 70 millions. And this is where it ties each department division into a certain dollar amount, just not a lump sum value. So that is all our departments in the county. It now covers from July 1st, 23 to June 30th of 24.
I'll move it. Second by Binger. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item B is approval of resolutions for interfund operating transfer for FY '24.
Unfortunately, we got to do each one separately. So it's 12, I believe it's 12 of them, so I'll go through them rather rapidly and we can go approve each one as we go along. So the first one here is the FICA IBER's health insurance, the benefits for the general basic fund is levied out general sub to the tune of $7,343,736, which we transfer at the end of the fiscal year.
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Next one is conservation reserve to general basic fund. That's covering their loan over a 10-year period. Their allocation this year for principal and interest to the general basic from conservation reserve fund, $136,200.
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Next one is gaming revenue general basic fund covering expenditures of $235,000 for, I believe it's in conservation and building services departments to cover their equipment.
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Next one is general basic. That's local option sales tax that cover general basic expenditures in the nature center, and the new position is created for conservation, tune of $440,343.
I'll move it.
Second motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Next one is local option sales tax, the rural basic fund. This covers the economic/community development department to the tune of $170,051.
Move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Next one is local option sales tax, rural basic fund, $39,000. That covers our share of the soil conservation person out at the ag extension place.
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Next one is rural basic to secondary roads, $1,732,500. That is the minimum allocation we have to make so we don't lose money.
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Next one is tax increment to debt service, $791,250. That covers our payment for principal and interest on our 10-year program.
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Secondary roads to debt service, that's $300,000. That covers the secondary road share of the 10-year program.
I'll move it.
Second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Next one, rural basic service, the county library, $186,114. That's our share for the townships to the county library. Cities levy their own money.
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Rural basic to emergency services, that's $166,093. That is half their budget for the townships.
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes
Last
5-0.
one. Okay, last one, general basic to emergency paramedics, that's the other half of the $166,093, covers paramedics.
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
That is it.
All righty. Thank you for your service. Back to item 15, any committee meetings we forgot to report on? All right. Item 16, any citizen concerns for items not already addressed on the agenda?
Deborah Main, 1026 Charles Avenue. Sorry, I haven't been here the last few weeks, but I've been taking care of my parents. I wonder about the difference in the two pipelines that are proposed through our county. One's going to run at 2,100 pounds of pressure, the other at 1,300 pounds of pressure, and 1,300 is still twice the gas, but I just wondered why the difference in operation there. I also wondered about the plume modeling they're using. There is one program called FAST, and that is for water flow and not for gas. And I understand that Navigator is not doing easements right now, they're doing options. I haven't checked land records, but I think there's a difference in how they are acquiring permission for land. I am concerned about safety with this pipeline. Some of our landowners have both pipelines on their property. It goes near Whispering Creek. It goes by the youth basketball or youth baseball field at Lawton. It goes by the pumpkin patch, and it goes across the northwest corner of Lawton. So it goes through some high populated areas. So I'm concerned about that. I also wondered about where it's being monitored. That wasn't stated about the location for that. Other than that, it sounded pretty much like all the other ones, except I disagreed with mildly toxic. It's very toxic. It's asphyxiating, for one thing. So as long as they're giving us presentations, I hope to keep track of those and come and visit again for you. Also, I would like to give a shout out to Mark Nahara and his crew for doing that really nice job at the end of D12.
Thank you. Any other citizen concerns?
Doyle Turner, 2738 200 Street, Mobile. I do have one question on the pipeline. All these pipelines have relief valves, and nobody seems to be talking about them. My understanding is they're allowed 10% over the rated capacity, the rated pressure. I think we need to know where these relief valves are, how much gas they can actually release, and who is in danger of them.
I cannot personally address that, but I can get information, certainly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen concerns? Item 17, board concerns. Mr. Nelson?
I don't have any concerns, which is good. But I wanted to give a shout out. We had two really great deputies that rode along with us during the tractor ride this weekend. Deputy Brady Bushman and Deputy Rebecca Shoup. And they were both really great. They were talking with people all throughout the day, and they were cracking jokes and having a good time. And so it's really great to see the sheriff's office out mingling with people and having a good time. And the tractor ride made it rain for the third year in a row, so I accept payments for that in cash. But we had a good turnout, and it was a good day, so thanks for all those who came out.
You're a little biased on rain, given your profession.
It was badly needed, okay, so,
We needed that.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Any other board concerns? All right, remember, there's no meeting next week due to July 4th.